Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today I have Dabney Lawless from Lawless Astrology. I saw her with Susan Lynn I don't know, about a year ago. You came on once during the spring, summer, and we were discussing things, and I asked her back on this day specifically because of the Sun Pluto in Aries conjunction, which is actually exact in the morning on the eastern coast, so Eastern Standard. But it's close enough. It's conjunct. It just isn't exact yet. Um, and she just so you know, her on her channel, she has um, released videos. She just released a Sun Pluto conjunction in Aquarius video today. She just dropped that today, but she has history of Pluto throughout time. Really cool videos, really cool. Let me say hi real quick to everybody. Thank you for coming on, Dabney. We appreciate you. I have Cat Mama, Rossi, Lauren Hunsinger, Bora, thank you. Thank you, all moderators. Thank you, Karen Robinson. And I'm sure more people will come in, but we were going to talk about how we got to today.
Okay.
So, I'm going to give you the floor.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for hosting me. And thank you, everybody out there that's watching. So, yeah. So, one thing, the Pluto Sun conjunctions in Aquarius today. And so, it's a big day, obviously. A lot of people I know are disappointed with where things are going, what's happening, myself included. That said, I like to look at the astrology as the planets are conspiring to help us, whether it feels like it or not. And so when I woke up this morning and I was really kind of reading the energy, first of all, and I'm sure Valerie, you would agree with this, it's felt kind of dark lately. I don't know if you've had a lot of friends and stuff, but it seems like everybody's just kind of holding their breath, you know, the sense of like foreboding. And I think there's something liberating about just being able to go forward. And so this energy as we go forward of Pluto Sun conjunction, what does that mean? You know, because if you're not an astrologer, that's not something that makes no sense, right? So Pluto is the god of the underworld, and that's the planet that it was demoted to a dwarf planet. I'm aware of that, but as astrologers, we still kind of think of it as a planet. And so it is the planet of transformation. It is the planet of anything that is hidden beneath the surface. And it is the planet of troubles in a lot of ways, because what we suppress persists. And Pluto comes along and says, we need to unearth that. You know, we often as humans, to survive, repressing things is a survival technique, not seeing something that is clearly right in front of our faces. Oftentimes is a survival mechanism. And it, unfortunately, what is there underneath it all is still there underneath it all, whether we choose to bring it up or not. And so Pluto conjoining, we're sitting next to in the sky and the sun, the two of them together, basically Pluto is saying your identity needs an overhaul. Who you are as a person needs to be stronger. It needs to be more clear. It needs to be more truthful. It needs to be more conscious. You need to bring up the things that you are not willing to look at. Okay. Now, this is in Aquarius. In our lifetimes, we've never had a Pluto Sun conjunction in Aquarius. There's a Pluto Sun conjunction every year. But what happens is it depends on what sign Pluto's in. And Pluto hasn't been in the sign of Aquarius since the 1700s. So in our lifetimes, we've experienced Pluto Sun conjunctions in different signs. This one's in Aquarius. This is the very first, this is the initiation. This is the first time for the next 20 years there will be Pluto Sun conjunctions, but it's the first time this is happening in Aquarius. And it happened on the day of inauguration. And so that would have happened in the sky, whether it was Kamala or Trump, it didn't matter. This is the energy with which we are initiating this new administration. And so looking at the fact that this is going to be a heavy time, Pluto times are heavy. There are times where we have to go through trials and tribulations. We have to go through the dark to get to the light. And it's being tied to our actual identity at this point. So Valerie, does that all make sense? Would it make sense to kind of tell the Persephone story, or do you want to just sort of talk a little bit more about what I'm thinking this could mean, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, on her video today, she talked about the Persephone story and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was really cool. I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense, you know? Whatever you're feeling, and her video's there if anyone wants to go check it out. Really cool how she explained it all. Well, what I guess,
so let me give you the highlight then. And so they want to go over and check out the full video, they can. But the highlights of what I was trying to communicate is Persephone is a mythology about a young girl who loses her innocence, and she's kidnapped and taken into the underworld by Hades, and her mother is grieving. So it's really like a story of like women getting screwed over massively, which I think we can all relate to right now. And kind of the old boys club making a deal behind their back about what their destiny should be. And, you know, Hades wanted to marry Persephone, and so he kind of got away with it. But the mother in this story has a little agency, and she uses her power to make sure that her daughter is with her some part of the year. And so, and in the deal, both Persephone and her mother are both goddesses, but they're elevated to be able to sit on Mount Olympus, which before they were just kind of lower goddesses. So kind of the whole point of the story, and you can watch my video, but the whole point of the story is these goddesses and us women are really going to be going through a lot of trials. We are going to be at the mercy of the old boys club that is going to make decisions on our behalf. That's happening. That will happen. There are going to be potentially issues around food. You know, they're talking about cutting SNAP. You know, they're talking about cutting Medicaid and Medicare. So people who are in need. In that mythology too, Demeter makes the earth go barren and there's a famine. So I'm not predicting a famine, but I am predicting tough times. But the point of the fable, the mythology, is that through this trial, through this difficult time, these two women get a lot stronger, and they then are a lot more powerful, and in the end have more power than they did when they started. And so Pluto is a very long cycle. You know, it's a 20-year. So we're all like, oh, Pluto, you know, the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And we all think that Pluto is going to usher in this divine feminine. But if we open our eyes and see the actual astrology of this year, it is very male dominated. And Aquarius is a very male sign. It's very much in the head, not in the heart. And so we have to be somewhat realistic about how we move through this time and kind of get ready for battle in some ways. Like we're going to be going into battle. The other more modern mythology I talked about was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And that's a TV show from the 1990s. So some people who are watching may remember Buffy, but she was kind of this real feminist, you know, teenage girl who kicked butt. And she chosen. She was, this, and it was mirrors the Persephone stories in a lot of ways, because she was innocent and sweet and didn't have a care in the world and just liked to go shopping. But then she was chosen, and she was told she was the chosen one to protect the world, to keep the earth safe from vampires. And so she would slay the vampires. And as the show went on, it kind of got darker and darker. And Buffy really had to go through hell until she realized she alone couldn't save the world. It wasn't one girl is chosen every generation. It has to be all of us are chosen. And that's the Aquarian piece of it. And it can't be just one person is going to save us. So let's say Kamala had won. She still couldn't save us. We have to save us. There has to be a collective uprising. And that's going to include people that may have voted very differently than we did. But in order to get there, we're all going to have to see this dark underbelly. We're going to have to really finally be on the same page to overcome what's coming.
And to me, I think this is where I got the rug pulled out from under my feet. Was I really thought people could see how the underbelly is. Okay, I guess a lot of us here in this community with Susan and our community is huge and it's growing, right? And everybody has their skills and abilities and have been waking up and their psychic abilities coming online, right? And thinking that, well, we can all see, it's obvious, look how awful everything is, right? How is it? So I'm seeing this as coming up, and it's going to really level the playing field. Realize that, it's a 20-year thing, and it will eventually.
So what's interesting is astrology doesn't take place in a vacuum. And as you know, we've also had Neptune in Pisces, and that is very delusional. And Neptune has been in Pisces since 2011. And I think that there's a real high potential with Neptune in Pisces. Part of that has been the increased interest in astrology, the increased interest in psychics and, any kind of psychic phenomenon, spirituality versus like hardcore religion. Those things are Neptune and Pisces. But the darker side of that, which is people escaping and not seeing reality and really kind of choosing their own reality, like that's very Neptune and Pisces too. And, the fake news, the actual demise of the media, all of that is Neptune and Pisces, because the Neptune rules the media and like it's been dissolving, right? We don't know who to trust. We don't know who to turn to. And some people just aren't as smart as other people. And so if you give them, this information and you tell them what they want to hear during this time, there's a real danger for people just really glomming onto what they wanted to hear versus the reality. And so, yes, a lot of us already have eyes wide open, about half of us, right?
Yeah.
And the other half is really just struggling. Now, that said, I think that we're not going to get to a better place if we demonize and we just say us versus them, which I feel as well. But I think what we need to start recognizing is how much we've been divided.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the real issue is not left versus right, but bottom versus top.
That's right.
And that was starting to, when Pluto was in Capricorn, people were very well aware of that when Obama took office. And that was the Occupy Wall Street movement. But unfortunately, we were in the heart of Pluto and Capricorn, and so many things really worked against the idea of, helping people to understand it really is the 99% versus the 1%. And so that messaging got sidelined by people who were really adept at hijacking the narrative to make it more about left versus right. If you think about when this all started, how you really didn't dislike your neighbor because of who they voted for. And now, they've done a really good job. The propaganda has been, and a lot of this has come from other countries, but our own country as well. And so there's so many things at play here.
Every aspect. It's like every aspect got hit. Like everything that that could have united us has divided us, right? Just like you said. I look at the other side. Obviously I'm on uh, the more liberal side, Kamala's
Yeah,
side.
clearly I am too.
And that's but I look at them like, really, we all want the same thing. We all want to live in peace and to be able to uh, well, we did at one time, but I want to go back in time, even Reagan eras, and Dabney, like I said, has a lot of videos on the history of how things have unfolded, and it's really, I mean, remarkable investigative journalism and pairing it with astrology, so showing how they all sync up together. And to me, it was, it was purposeful since then, since Reagan. It was just systematic, and they just kept chipping away and chipping away and chipping away, knowing that that was the only way that they were going to really seize power, was by dividing us so much. Because we all really want the same thing. Nobody wants to go to war. Nobody wants to hate. I don't want to hate anybody. I don't care who you vote for, or I didn't, until it was in my face 24/7. And like you said, no one can trust the media. You don't. That's why everybody's on YouTube or TikTok. Oh, goodness, I want to bring up TikTok. And yesterday, that was interesting.
I know, and I use CapCut to edit my videos, and so I'm lost now. I'm like, I've got to learn a new editing software, and let me tell you, I'm not good at that stuff. So,
well, didn't they bring it back, or they didn't bring
brought
it fully
back, but so far they have not brought CapCut back. So I don't know if I'm out of luck, or I mean, the bottom line is, it sounds like I'm gonna need to learn a new software anyway. But
I need to learn so much computer stuff, and I just keep staying safe and staying simple and going with what I know, right? But isn't that's also an Aquarius thing? Aquarius is brilliant, and if we go to the opposing sign of Aquarius is Leo, who rules the heart, right? So the way those two signs, if we're going to talk about evolving, astrologically, and everybody evolving, you got to use both of the higher attributes of the signs. Don't go down into the narcissism of Leo, or the detachment and coldness of Aquarius, because that's truly possible. And here we are trying to find that balance and stabilize, right?
That's it, 100%. And one of the things, when I was researching that video that you're referencing about Pluto through the different generations since 1930, when Pluto was founded, the thing that struck me that I had never really internalized was how big of a deal Hiroshima and Nagasaki were. Like, that blew me away, because in some ways it was a footnote of what I learned in high school, right? Or, grammar school. And, over 300,000 people were killed in an instant. And the Pluto in Leo generation was born during that time. That, like, my father was like a year old. My mom was a few months old when that happened. My mother-in-law, her mother was pregnant. A lot of the boomers, like, they were born right when that was taking place. They were little, or it was like within a few years. Right. And so to be born of that energy, this kind of like on the world stage, suddenly America was catapulted into this leadership role. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. But one of the things that I had never really internalized and thought about is, like, how kind of messed up that is, that we became this superpower, this world power, based on this weapon. that, we talk about weapons of mass destruction. That was a weapon of mass destruction that catapulted us into being leaders of the free world. Now, there's so many other like heroic things that came along with that. So it's a very complicated topic, but that was something that I hadn't personally internalized. Now, fast forward to where we are here now today, and that Pluto and Leo generation, the baby boomers, was so influential. They're still so influential, to the point that, like, we just had Biden and Trump running at their boomers. Like, they won't let go. They're like still, something like over 65% of Congress is baby boomers, right? Like, they are still ruling the world. That was their role. That's the mythology they were born into, is that you are the heroes. You need to rule the world. Well, now we have Pluto in Aquarius, and that is the opposing sign of Pluto and Leo. And so, to your point, they both, they have very similar goals, but they do things differently. They're both very leadership oriented and forward momentum. But now we're going to have, over the next 20 years, while Pluto is in Aquarius, we're going to be having the baby boomers, their power is, they're going to be leaving the world stage in a lot of ways. And so this Pluto in Aquarius is about less around the individuals and the superstars that were born during that time, and more about the collective energy. And that's where I think a lot of people get the notion of Pluto being this more communal, collective, like equality. That's all true. But there's a darker side as well. And Pluto often brings out kind of the dark side in things, unfortunately, because it's basically wanting us to, like, clean up our internal messes.
I mean, it is about integrity and authenticity too. Ultimately, like Pluto is, right? No matter how you get there, it might be very painful. Excuse me, in the babysitting, house sitting. Well, granddaughter sitting, house sitting, and bed sitting, and I'm not in my normal situation, and the dogs just hear something and they start going off. I'll try to keep
well, if you need to go check on a granddaughter, I can keep things rolling. I'll keep blabbing, and I'll keep everybody company for a few minutes.
I know, she's good. She's 8. She's we got her set up. She's doing good. She usually stays with me on the weekends, so she's familiar that I do shows on astrology and stuff. And she loves planets. I mean, loves the planets, loves cats and the planets. And so I teach her a lot, as I go along, what she wants to learn.
Well, you can see behind me, somebody had mentioned they love my piece of artwork behind me.
Yeah.
In the comments, and that's the word equality in Korean. And you can get a print of that if you go to artists for the number 4 ERA.org. Artists for ERA. So just so you know, I helped organize something for the Equal Rights Amendment a couple of years ago, a big art show. And this is one of the original pieces, but we sold prints from famous artists to help support gender equality. And we did have a piece of good news with the Pluto Sun Conjunction. It wasn't as good as it could have been, but Biden did declare that the ERA is the law of the land. So unfortunately, he didn't go that one step further and make the archivist publish it, which I wish he had. But it is the law of the land. There is no reason why it shouldn't be ratified. So for all you Pluto and Virgo generation out there, and all of the boomers that worked on the ERA back in the day, and all of us Gen Xers that really still grew up with ERA pins from our mother and stuff, it's still very much alive and is the law of the land. So
yeah, when I was little, my mom, she was a hippie, and she would take us to the civil rights protests. I was just a little kid. I was at all the protests, and I want to shout out to my mom, and she had a stroke this week, so I just want to. That she's doing really well, but she is going to go to rehab for a few weeks and straighten it out. And the thing is, she's a hospice social worker, has been, and still does it. She just retired last year, and she's 84. It's
Wow.
really feisty. Yeah, she's feisty, man. And she I didn't want to like get into today's event. You know, we kind of didn't focus on that today, but you know,
Well, shout out to your mom, and we'll all send her good vibes because
thank
it
you,
sounds like
thank
she's
you.
a cool lady.
Yeah, she is. She's really cool, and you know, that generation, like you said, is a lot of filled. You know, Congress is filled with that age group. You know, and I remember being very young, and please forgive me. This is my young mind talking, but it's something I never forgot. Like, why do all these white old guys run the world? Okay, and I am not prejudiced towards anybody, but you know, they do kind of irritate me.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I mean, it's very irritating when we were taught, every woman on this, we were taught they were the only voices, they were the only playwrights, they were the
mhm,
only novelists that mattered.
mhm.
The old white guys were all we grew up thinking had any power.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
what's interesting now, and this is part of 2025's energy, is there is sort of this giant backlash against women and minorities because we've actually made some progress. And so they had to
Mhm.
give up a little piece of that pie in previous years, and they started realizing it, and they were not very happy. And so part of this kind of the pendulum is swinging back to some very, very aggressive male energy. And that's
Yeah.
going to be coming at us big time in the spring as well, when we have Neptune and Saturn going into Aries.
Mhm.
So with the Uranus is going into Gemini, Neptune is going into Aries, Saturn is going to Aries, and we've got now Pluto and Aquarius. These are all male signs, they're all yang signs. And so all of that energy will empower them. But if you go back to what I was talking about before with the Pluto Sun conjunction,
Mm.
we are going to have trials. We are going to have things we're going to need to overcome and we're going to need to get through. But who watching has not come through the fire and realized that they are stronger as a result?
True.
And that's the energy that I feel from this, is that the reason that they're angry is because they haven't had to walk through the fire in the same way that we have. They haven't been, marginalized. And when they had a little of their power taken away, they weren't so happy. And
Mhm.
so that unhappiness, because they didn't know how to process it, they are not taught how to have emotions. They're not taught that emotions are okay. Emotions are for girls. Emotions are, therapy is for women, right? And so if there's no way to process something that doesn't feel good, like losing a degree of power, anger is what is acceptable for male energy.
Mhm.
That's what I think we have to overcome, is just the knee-jerk reaction to anger, and help giving white men an outlet to understand what they're feeling, so then they can maybe move through it and we can get to a better place, all of us.
My goodness. So I mean, they've had so many opportunities, right? And now it's even kind of more, to me, it's a little bit more intimidating because these are, for the most part, oligarchs, billionaires,
Mhm.
millionaires, all in power. I mean, if we look at Trump's cabinet, most of them have been accused of rape, pedophilia, or, you know, sexual,
Alcoholism, yeah,
yes, yeah, all kinds of things, right? That just take you
wife
out of the,
abuse, that's on there too. You can add that to the list.
oh
Spousal
man,
abuse.
I mean, as long as Trump's list of things are, it's just more of the same, right? Of these type of people with a lot of money. And if we look at the top five, you know, that are going to probably be a trillionaire within a year. I mean, people don't realize how much that extra zero, how long how much money that is. And that transfer of wealth since the pandemic to now has, I mean, they own everything. They own everything. They own, they have the money, the power, the military. I don't know. I know that we have all these outer planets changing signs, and and Jupiter's in there. Jupiter's going into Cancer, which I think is going to help. That's around June. We'll see. I'm almost afraid to say anything. Astrology isn't doesn't give you the answers. It's an energy. It's how's the energy flowing, and in your chart, it gets more specific because we can look at the houses and where those planets are. But as the overall collective of the world, um, there's just so many ancient texts that talk about us going into this golden age, this time period of a golden age. And how did it get so far from a golden age? And here we are back at, it feels like square one, looking at these same men with all the power, all the money, that go throughout time, whoever Roman, the males had the power. We could just keep replaying this. It just feels like the record is skipping, and we're never getting. Even though I know slowly we are unraveling and evolving, but like you brought up, these men don't know any other emotion other than anger. When we have had, a lot of openness, and everybody was accepting of everybody, and all of a sudden this doors are just being slammed shut on all this alternative ways of being, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, the executive orders that, and I've kind of stayed away from the news, and I didn't watch the inauguration.
I didn't.
But one thing I saw last night was the executive orders were about transgender people, shutting down DEI programs, immigration, and I don't remember, there was one other thing, but basically nothing about the economy, right? Or it was all about, demonizing women, demonizing Black people, demonizing brown immigrants, and demonizing LGBTQ transgender people, right? So it's like, okay, so we have to have eyes wide open. The Pluto Sun conjunction is open your eyes, look at what's happening. Right now, somebody put in the comments, I don't need to get stronger. And I hear you. I feel you. I just want you to know I am very tired. I know you are tired. We are all tired. This is not fair. I remember after I had my baby, and my husband wanted to go play 18 rounds of golf. And it was like, had like a 2-week-old, and I talked to my mom. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. Did you think that life was fair?
No.
And she was like, I hate to break it to you, but you're the one who's going to feed the baby. You're going to get up with the baby. And she was right, and I do think there has been progress. I do think that generationally, but I think we are in a backlash moment. I think the energy is of the backlash. I also want to say that I think that backlash, like everything is a pendulum. The world is again, just so everybody knows, I don't think I know everything. I'm giving you an astrological interpretation. Right. As if I know what's going on in the world any more than anyone else. But the way I get myself out of bed and brush my hair and brush my teeth in the morning is to, in the face of some pretty dark energy that we're all feeling, is to understand the world is coming to balance. It wants to find balance. But sometimes in order to find balance, it goes to an extremes. It's like, in order to get to this place of that golden age, of that, sometimes it swings from one side of the pendulum to the next. And unfortunately, I do feel this kind of powerful energy coming that may be very challenging for those of us that are on the empathic or sensitive side, which you know, and it's not just women. There are a lot of sensitive men. There are a lot of men who are allies out there. There are a lot of men who, you know, who voted to for more equality, financial equality as well. You know, we have to understand the propaganda machine is in full effect right now.
Yeah.
And it is just, when you read the headlines versus the headlines when Joe Biden took office, which was like the first year, every second of the day was recession, 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 which never even happened. Never happened. And now it's like the golden age, and we're, you know, it's just like ignoring the reality of what's actually happening and the suffering that's taking place, the suffering that will take place if you take away school lunches or you take away food from poor single mothers. Like, there are actual repercussions of that. But I think sometimes those repercussions are unfortunately what are needed to help wake people up to say, well, that isn't really what I wanted.
Right. And you would think by now that they, you know, that we've seen enough of that. They've slowly chipped away at, I mean, corporate welfare is off the charts, right? I mean, they're off the charts.
They never talk about that, do they? You know, pull yourself up. Why doesn't Amazon pull itself up by its bootstraps? I'd like to see that.
Right. And why is all welfare, Walmart employees have to be on SNAP and have to, you know, get the health care through social services? And that's who you know, that's who they're coming for first. They're not going to tax themselves. They're not going to make this fair and even playing field. And it's just so frustrating. It's like, we've been watching this. I don't know about you. I remember as a child, I could see through this. And as a kid, you know, my mom was a welfare mom, but she worked her butt off, put herself through the University of Pitt, you know, and just kept going. But still, you could at that time, and I'm not saying it's impossible now to pull yourselves up, but look how much it costs just to live your daily life, to put a roof over your head. It's astronomical if you can find a roof. And look what happened to California. My gosh, you know, I hear that landlords there are jacking up the rents. You know, like everything gets jacked up and put onto the people, which I guess in my mind, I was associating Aquarius with humanity, with a collective. Like,
that's true.
Yeah, and at some point, you're going to push the bear too hard, and it's just going to snap back on you. You know, it's just like the last time in the 1700s during the French Revolution and the American Revolution. But the French Revolution, they were pretty brutal about it, and rightly so. And I think I learned this from you or from one of your videos, is that that was the first time there was a middle class, was after the French Revolution.
Yeah.
The very first time in all of history. And that's only a few hundred years ago. It's not very long.
And that came about because of the rise of democracy out of the United States. And the United States has been having its Pluto return. And so we've basically they've had to, and by they, I mean the people that were unhappy that we got rid of the feudal system or the class system to the degree we did. You know, you have to think about the fact of the matter is, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who everyone, like, year after year, when they say who's the best president, he always wins, like him and Abraham Lincoln, right?
Yeah.
And FDR, during his time, everyone was like whining and crying about socialism and, you know, you're a socialist, and like, you know, they were trying to prevent all of the New Deal programs. Like, this is an age-old thing, and it's taken 250 years to unwind that middle class. They've successfully done. But Pluto and Aquarius. So another thing that I've talked about on my videos, about Pluto, one of the things, Valerie, I'm sure you've heard me say is like with the financial crisis of 2008, usually
Yeah.
when Pluto goes into a sign for the, the really like the first time, like where it's going to stay there, you get some indicator of what is coming. And that was, the 2008 crisis really was foreshadowing for all of the greed and the corruption and the division of wealth in our society and the erosion of the middle class, all that stuff. Well, suddenly you had Luigi, and you had, that was a very powerful Pluto and Aquarian like statement where it no longer was left versus right. The left and the right were in 100% agreement that this greedy healthcare CEO, I'm not advocating for his murder, but he has blood on his hands as well. And people were saying that. And that was something that was pretty collectively left and right saying like, hey, I have been really screwed over by the insurance companies. So it was no longer about, oh, Biden did that and Obamacare. It was like, no, that's those people. And that was and that was a shocking moment. And you noticed how left and right, the upper echelons rallied to, they did that herp walk, and that was a Democrat mayor and a Democrat Congress or governor, and they were going to start like a hotline for CEOs who are being threatened. It's just like, so we have to kind of recognize that maybe it isn't our neighbors, it's the people pulling the strings.
It is, and it's both sides. I can't. I don't remember what year it was when Ross Perot was running for president, but that's when I became an independent.
92, I believe.
92. Okay, so and then we had the hanging chads, right? I was in Florida when that happened.
2000.
And the Democrats didn't even fight it. So I was thinking, okay, you're going to at least ask for a recount.
Something. You're going to like call it to their attention that actually he did win both the popular vote and the Electoral College, but it was decided by the Supreme Court. I mean, the whole thing was stolen. And we just we did the right thing, right? Yeah. Like the same way we did the right thing the last 4 years by letting this happen again, I mean, there is, at a certain point, you got to man up a little bit.
That's right. And you got to get, where's your backbone, right? Where's that fight? So my mom about 2 months ago, because I kept saying, just hold off, maybe something's got to come after the election, right? She was just despondent. She was just couldn't believe it. And I was just right there with her, but I didn't want her to feel like that. So I was like, look, we'll wait till the inauguration. If nobody fights against or stands up for anything, ask for a recount, do something. Do something.
Do you remember through the first 2 years of Biden's presidency, all of the memes, do something? We were all out here begging them to do something.
Do something, yes.
Do something.
And I said, well, we'll know, if maybe the Dems are in on it. Maybe they're very comfortable where their power level is and what they have going, and they have this banter going with all the people in the middle, right? Well, it's their fault, it's our fault. Now that Luigi thing, the reason why I'm bringing this up is that Luigi thing has kind of stopped everybody and went, oh, you know what? Maybe it is both of them, because the Dems are asking for a hotline for abused CEOs. Come on. They're building bunkers the last 20 years. They're the biggest transfer of wealth in the last 5 years. Well, it's been ongoing, right? And you gotta kind of say, at least this is what I'm saying. Nobody got to do what I'm doing. I'm saying to myself, I was always independent. I was always in the middle, and I'm looking at both of them going, you both are shady. You're not here for the people. I want to believe you are, because that's what I've been taught since I was a little tiny kid, but it's not. And I went to Ross Perot for a reason, because I was sick of seeing this back then. Even, you could see it just goes, oh, let's drop the ball in their lap. Let's just then drop it over here, and it just never ends. And I don't want to. To me, all of this would have been avoided if the Democrats would have allowed Bernie Sanders to be the ticket nominee instead of putting Hillary Clinton in.
Well, and I will say Hillary was, democratically elected in the primary, but I was a Bernie girl too. And the reality is they did not get behind Bernie, and it's the establishment. And so, this is the first time. So I have a confession that, like, I've been a Democrat my whole life. I was raised a Democrat. I've changed I've changed to an independent. And now that doesn't mean that I'm not voting Democrat. I don't think both sides are the same, but do I think that there are real issues that we have to look at within the Democratic Party that are preventing, like, how did, we can't embrace AOC, but we're going to put somebody who is 74 with throat cancer on, as the head of, I forgot the committee, but the bottom line is we need to embrace the future. And that is the Aquarian. That's the new vision. And so I really think this inauguration today happening under a Sun Pluto conjunction, it portends some troubles for the incoming administration, no matter who that was going to be. There's some real issues there. And a light is, the unconscious is bubbling up like nobody's business for the next 4 years. And so as that happens, and as Neptune shifts into Aries, I think there's going to be there's going to be wake up calls. There's going to be people like opening their eyes and being like, that's not what I voted for. That's not what I thought I was getting. Yeah. So I think we're going to see an acceleration of that. And the more we have that, the more we are going to be able to come back together, Aquarian, the collective people. Yeah. And that's where the power starts to rise back up. So this is what I'm talking about, the pendulum swing. This is not how I wanted this to happen.
No, I know.
Will happen, but we'll see, right? We'll just have to see. And we're going to have to stay strong with one another. And that's why I love communities like this. Because you guys have all become friends. Like, I look in your comments and you guys know each other, and you support one another, and that's really what we have to do to get through this time.
Yeah, and and this community has grown, right? And this has been since the pandemic. I didn't know all these people existed. I was working in a restaurant, I was a bartender. I was 65, here I was, and then, I met all of these beautiful souls, and all these people I'd watched prior to, like spiritual people. I started seeing back then. Well, I started seeing it in 2016, and then it just was, that was 4 years up until until the pandemic came in. It was this, wow, I would have never thought you were a Trump supporter, like these weird things coming through, right? So we, over these last 4 years, this group has grown, and we see each other in all the chats, and everybody's really cool to each other. And we all want the same thing. And again, I think that comes down to, it's really a basic thing: safety and security, to live in peace and harmony. As a society, I just don't see why it's so darn hard for us to get there. But can I ask you a question about Neptune going into Aries? Now, Saturn and Aries, I can kind of I got a good feel for.
Okay.
But Neptune in Aries is, okay, we're going to come out of that delusion, and see our media is obviously not telling us the truth. We have problems everywhere. I do see a lot of people pulling back from, like, they're really, like, if these corporations supported him, I'm not buying from them, that type of thing.
Right.
Well, do you think that's part of Neptune Aries, or that's, well, I'll let you enter. I don't want
Okay.
to put
So
words.
what I see with Neptune and Aries, I see progress when it comes to addiction. I think that we're going to see less addiction. What's interesting is we're already seeing less alcohol consumption. So I do
Yeah.
think that we are going to have, and I think that the drug epidemic is going to start to really recede. I think the rise of independent media. So we're gonna, I think the established media is really going to dissolve away. And we're
Yeah.
going to see, you know, like the Midas Touch and the Brian Tyler Cohen's, and, you know,
Yeah.
you see independent media and more like YouTube people telling the stories. And people are going to be siloed a little bit more, which is unfortunate because Aries can be on its own. Right, Aries is kind of in its own world, but so some of the progress, though, I see addressing the homelessness crisis, I think, is something that can happen during Neptune and Aries, but it also can be war, and it also can be Christian fundamentalism and kind of the rise of Christian nationalism. So, you know, or any kind of religious fundamentalism, like, you know, crusades, wars around religion and things like that. So that's a possibility. But I want to give you some hope in that this summer, there's a really nice, the three outer planets are all making harmonious aspects with one another. And that's very different than, like, let's say the French Revolution, where Pluto was opposing Uranus, right? So this is kind of like all three of the outer planets are harmonizing and they're supporting one another. So there's breakthroughs. So Uranus going into Gemini, we're going to have a big technological revolution, giant, and that could have some impact and help with climate change.
Yeah.
So there could be something where we figure out, you know, how to kind of back off from climate change, or we help with the fires. Like, there's new technologies that can help with that. So I don't want us to think that it's all bad. I think that was what I wanted to do with that Pluto in the different generations, is to kind of show us how much we've been through as people. And if we go all the way back to the Pluto and Cancer generation, those people went through a lot. You know, Pluto in Capricorn was a lot. And I think that coming off of that Pluto in Capricorn, I think there will be some solutions with Pluto in Aquarius. I think that there's more of a forward movement. I also, just to give you some, I don't want to be depressing, and because we need some hope.
Yes.
So I really, I picked a card. I asked what this community needed to hear. So this is specifically for the people who are on this call. I got Cow Spirit. The miracles are endless. The message: your beautiful point in life today. Your needs are fully being met in so many ways. Fully embrace this truth by focusing on all you have right now, including the positive relationships that sustain you, the work you're proud to do and contribute to the world, and the activities that inspire and nourish your soul. Cow Spirit nudges you to pay attention, because this is the perfect time to focus on the choices, actions, and behaviors that you know feed your soul and bring your heart contentment. Now is the time when you will see many of your projects and commitments that were set in motion in the past begin to yield valuable gifts that will bring you joy and love. Stay positive and share your well-being with others. The more you share, the more you will manifest. So be generous. Cow Spirit promises you will never run out of miracles.
Wow. That is beautiful. Thank you.
Think about the fact that, you know, like, this is what I said. It's like, okay, it's here. Sometimes the fear of what's coming is worse than when it's here, because then you can deal with it. And so maybe we're just in it now and we're working through it. And, you know, there's another, like, we were also all slaves to the news and, like, all slaves to, like, our social media. I mean, at least I was, right? And I was getting all riled up. And now it's like, if it wasn't doing any good anyway. I was just
Right,
giving myself like mental health issues, right?
Yes. Right.
So it's like, okay, like how are we going to do this differently? What's the new
Yes.
vision? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to do a quick plug. Is that all right, Valerie?
Sure, please.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
go
have
ahead.
a course that I'm teaching. And
Yeah.
so if you want, you can head over to my website and you'll see the maybe Valerie will
All
put it.
her information's in the description box below, and I just took the course. It's really cool. It's about how to use these new the nodes in your chart for your because if you
What
go
you're
by
here
our
to do. Yeah, and what's your vision? So focus
your
on your vision, what you are here to bring. Like each one of us has like a seed. Each one of us has something special inside of us.
yeah.
And like, how do you want to bring that forward? And that's the thing is if we all grow the special seed within our hearts, that's the collective that's going to change this ship.
Mhm. And that's what we came here for, right?
Right.
We came here to do our North Node, in my opinion, over time. It's not none of this astrology isn't immediate. You know, yeah, there's sometimes you'll get a aspect that and a Uranus thing, boom, pops off, and
Right.
I mean, we've had quite a few. We did. In fact, wasn't that like in 2008 when Pluto went into Capricorn? Wasn't that the same day that the market dropped? I mean,
So
boom. It just went boom. And I was like, oh my God. And I was just getting into astrology at that point. Like I wasn't really, and I'm like, this is significant. I mean, it has to be, right? It was such a big thing. But so here we go. Here we go forward, right? And maybe we saw a different outcome for today, but here we are, like Dabney saying, and we are sick of all of that, just that constant rhetoric going on, and it isn't solving anything. It just gives you mental health issues, like you said. It's so true. And what can we do better with our time? What can we do? There's so many more beautiful things on this world that we can focus on. Each other, growing spiritually. That's what we're here for. I picked a card and it just says, it's pretty cool. It's unknown territory. And there's an owl up here kind of leading the way. And you just see this pathway, right? And it says, you are exactly where you need to be.
yeah.
And it feels, that it just feels right. I don't know. I would love for you to come back so we can, do these periodic updates and see how it is we're progressing, like what's going on in the chart is being hit for the collective. And, I guess we just, and one last thing, when I was listening to her videos about the different eras of the Pluto Aquarius, and the different, just the history of it all that you brought in, and you really do see, yeah, this was real crappy, but look, we grew in this way. There's always both sides and in the middle, right? And it may look bleak right now, and I know, I believe me, I've been in shock and unhappy all day, but we're here, and it doesn't mean that my life ends or your life ends. We got to just keep chugging forward like we always have.
Yeah.
There's there's a silver lining somewhere. I'm gonna go with that.
I mean, we're facing some really pretty big existential crises with
Yeah.
things like climate change
Yeah.
and the level of wealth inequality, the trillionaires, like you said. So there's some pretty existential things, and maybe there is the shock to the system is the thing that's needed. It wasn't the shock to the system the first time around because there were a lot of people holding the line. There won't be those people holding the line, and sometimes then the shock to the system is what is progress, unfortunately. And I'm not looking forward to this. I'm not advocating for it, but I'm also saying, well, if something's here, how do we as individuals kind of find that silver lining and say, well, this might be part of the catalyst to getting us to where we need to be.
to a solution, right?
Mhm.
And this, I mean, all of the things that humanity is facing is based because it's because of corporations and corporate greed and corporate wealth, and there just isn't enough money. It's always profits over people, no matter what area, healthcare, wherever we're at, right? It's always, how do we profit? And that's it. And what, to me, that it just seems like a big theme, like this Luigi thing, like you brought up, this billionaire thing, it is going to be on blast and really blatant in our faces. It already is, but it's just, I think
Well, I
that's
think
just,
I think the people that rallied behind him thinking that he was going to solve all their problems, that's the thing with Pluto and Aquarius. One person's not going to solve all your problems. There's no way. So
yeah,
I'm rooting for the success of this country. I'm rooting for the success of the world. I'm
me
rooting
too,
for
yeah,
humanity. That's what I'm rooting for. And do I think that this is going to bring that? The only way it's going to bring it, in my opinion, is through a backlash. But maybe
yeah,
that's what we need. And
yeah,
so, the Me Too movement had a tremendous backlash that we're seeing now. Black Lives Matter and Me Too is now the backlash that we're seeing, where people are demonizing, women and people of color. And like both of the DEI came from these same people that are now, demonizing it.
I
So
know,
it's fascinating. And so the
yeah,
psychology, and we cannot ignore the deep psychological wounding of a
yes,
Pluto Sun conjunction. That is a walk with some pretty heavy energy. Now, people who have that natally understand that energy, but most of us don't have that. And so this is heavy stuff that we are going to be walking through as a country, because
and
this
that,
happened while we are initiating this new administration. And so
right,
that you can't ignore that. You cannot ignore that these executives orders went out on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. There are no
no,
coincidences with all of this. And so
no,
all this stuff's going to be up.
yeah, it is. And we all have Aquarius in our chart, and I do like to say this.
Mhm.
I have an Aquarius rising, so it's hitting me right on my first house. It's coming up on my first house. So, but
It's there
as
now.
for,
You're feeling it. And that just means you're about to get so much more powerful, Valerie.
oh
Holy
my God,
cow. You're going to
if
go
you knew,
through a transformation.
I know it, I know it. If you knew, and I have Capricorn. I have 26-degree Saturn in Capricorn
Oh,
in the
well,
12th
good. Well, I'm
house.
glad Pluto's off of that for you then. I'm
Yeah,
very
and so that was sitting there in my 12th house
for a
forever,
long
and
time.
it just kind of moved up. So here we are now. But and we the thing about Aquarius, I want to say to people one thing about Aquarius: the frequency and the vibration and how you feel about something. It give yourself that pause to ask yourself, how am I feeling about this XYZ thing right now? Because that once you give yourself a pause and you notice where inside of you that frequency of vibration is hitting you, is it pissing you off, is it making you feel some kind of way? To me, it's like the more we know ourselves, our
Mhm.
frequency of all the different aspects and levels of ourself, we can maneuver through these types of things a little more. And I do think that, I don't know about revolution, but I do think people were going to stand together eventually
Well,
against the oligarchy, and against this abuse of power. Um, I just thought it was going to happen faster.
I think we all were optimistic, and that's where free will comes in, because I think
Yeah,
there was a path to fixing these problems that was potentially a little more gentle, but that's just not what the cards that we've been dealt currently. And so I think the best that we can do is to protect our sanity, to
yes,
love our families, to take care of ourselves. Like I said, there's a lot of progress coming no matter what, and maybe some of this shock to the system will be more beneficial than we realize.
Yeah. I mean, it's true.
And that's it. It's like just hold in your heart a good thought for humanity. I picked that cow spirit miracles card. That's pretty powerful. And then you picked one that's like, we're right where we're supposed to be. So let's just all collectively trust that.
Yeah. Yep. And just keep dropping into your heart, and we're here together. And we'll be back. We will be back and bring an update maybe in a few months, see what's going on.
Yeah.
We got those big planets changing signs, and that'll probably be over and done with by June, July. June.
Yeah, we're going to get a little in the fall. We'll get a dip of this energy that we're in right now, but we're in a lot of endings right now. We'll get a glimpse of the new beginnings, and we'll go back to the endings. And then 2026, we're off like a rocket ship.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll come back on and help break it all down for you if you'd like.
I would love that. Thank you so much for spending time with us. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of your astrology. Your videos are really awesome. A lot of history in there. Really, really kind of clicks it all into place for you, so, and it's easy to understand. She doesn't go into a lot of, of the
mumbo jumbo, the astro babble.
The astro babble. I was trying to say it in a nice way.
No, I mean, I watch it sometimes. I'm like, why don't you just say it's simple? Like, why do you got to throw around all this fancy language? Like, who are you proving yourself to be?
I know, right? No one knows.
I'm gonna do I'm researching it now, but the astrology of the Gilded Age. So
okay. That's going to be really cool. I'd like.
Then I'll see what's parallel to now. I haven't researched it yet, but it's on my list. So that's the next one.
So yeah, she goes deep. It's really cool, but it's easy to understand, and it's stuff that we all know, and we just kind of clicks into place anyway. Thank you for all what you do.
I appreciate your community. They seem like lovely people.
Thank you. And we can't wait to have you back. Everyone, be safe out there. We love you. Stay in your heart. Stay in your heart. Keep your eyes open. Love you very much. Be safe out there. Bye, guys.